For refusing to let my family move into my house after they showed up uninvited? My name is Olivia. I'm 38, and I'm the younger sister in a family where my older brother Daniel has always been treated like the sun, and the rest of us were expected to orbit around him. I still keep spare batteries in a kitchen drawer, fold grocery bags into neat little triangles, and save receipts longer than any normal person should, which tells you I'm practical enough to plan ahead. The problem was, for most of my life, I planned around everybody else's comfort and called it keeping the peace. I didn't grow up hating my family. I loved them. I wanted their approval so badly that I trained myself to be the convenient daughter, the one who didn't need much, the one who could wait, the one who could understand. Daniel was 4 years older, loud, charming, and somehow always in the middle of everything. When we were kids, he got the bigger bedroom because he had sports gear and needed space to spread out. I got the smaller room and was told I was lucky because it was quieter. "You're easier than he is," my mom Carol would say, like that was a compliment. If Daniel forgot chores, he was stressed. If I forgot one thing, I was being careless. If Daniel broke something, it was an accident. If I complained, I was making him feel worse. My dad, Mike, rarely started the unfairness, but he was very good at smoothing it over in whatever direction required the least effort. "Just let it go, Liv," he'd say. "Your mom's upset. Don't make it bigger." That was the soundtrack of my childhood. Don't make it bigger. As adults, the pattern didn't disappear. They got better furniture. Daniel married Jenna, had kids, and every difficult thing in his life became a family emergency. If he and Jenna were overwhelmed, I was asked to babysit. Not really asked, actually. Assigned. If I had plans, my mother reminded me that Daniel had real responsibilities. If Daniel borrowed a cooler, a ladder, a speaker, or anything with a cord, it usually came back dirty, dented, missing a piece, or not at all. "It's just stuff, Olivia," Mom would say. "Don't be petty." Once Daniel returned a small folding table with one leg bent so badly it wobbled. When I said something, he laughed and said, "You're acting like it's an antique." Mom added, "Your brother has kids running around. Things happen. Things always happen to my stuff, my time, my plans, my patience." Somehow Daniel's life was never expected to absorb the impact. Mine was. So when I bought my house, I didn't just feel proud. I felt quiet in a way I had never felt before. It wasn't huge. It wasn't fancy. It had a few rooms, a small kitchen with cabinets that squeaked if you opened them too fast, and a front window where the afternoon light fell across the floor in a long rectangle. The first night after I got the keys, I stood barefoot in the empty living room eating takeout off a paper plate because I hadn't bought a dining table yet. The place smelled like fresh paint, cardboard, and possibility. I remember setting my keys on the kitchen counter and just staring at them. No one had voted on this house. No one had negotiated for it. No one had sacrificed for it except me. I signed every document myself. I saved for years. I picked the boring but sturdy couch. I labeled shelves in the pantry. I bought a doormat that said nothing clever, because I didn't want my front door performing a personality for anyone. For the first time, I could stand in a room and not wonder who needed it more than I did. My family acted happy at first, but even then there were little comments. Mom walked through the hallway and said, "Well, you certainly have a lot of space for one person." Daniel opened one bedroom door and whistled. "Must be nice." Jenna smiled, but there was a thinness to it. The kids would lose their minds over a room like this. I laughed because I thought they were just being annoying. I didn't understand yet that they were measuring. The first rail warning came on a Tuesday evening while I was making pasta in my kitchen. My phone rang and Mom's name filled the screen. I almost didn't answer because I had already had a long day, but old habits are stubborn. "Hi, Mom." She skipped hello. "I talked with your father, and we think Daniel and Jenna should stay with you for a little while." I turned down the burner. "Stay with me?" "Yes. Move in temporarily. Just until they get back on their feet." The word move hit differently from stay. Stay sounded like a guest room in a weekend. Move sounded like boxes, mail, furniture, and people asking where I kept the extra towels. "Who decided that?" I asked. "We discussed it as a family." I looked around my kitchen, at the pot steaming on the stove and the mug I had left in the sink that morning because nobody lived there to judge me. Not with the person who owns the house. Mom sighed in that exhausted way she used when she wanted me to feel like I was making her manage me. Olivia, don't start. Your brother has a family. The kids need stability. And I need my home. You have extra rooms. They're not extra. They're mine. There was a pause. Then her voice softened, which was always more dangerous than when she raised it. Honey, you're single. You don't need all that space right now. Daniel has children. This is what family does. Family asks first, I said. We are asking. No, you're announcing. She made a small sound like I had slapped her. I raised you better than this. That line used to work on me. It used to crawl under my skin and live there for days. This time I stirred the pasta and watched the steam fog the window. My answer is no, I said. Mom got quiet again. You're emotional. I'm very clear. We'll talk when you calm down. She hung up before I could answer. I stood there with the phone in my hand, listening to sauce bubble on the stove. My heart was pounding, but underneath the anger was a strange little click of recognition. She had not treated my no like an answer. She had treated it like an obstacle. The next morning, Daniel posted in the family group chat. Daniel, we only need a few months. I can't believe this is even a fight. Jenna. The kids are already stressed. We thought everyone was on the same page. Mom, Olivia, please don't embarrass the family. Dad. Liv, be reasonable. This is not the time to dig in. Aunt Ruth. You have more than enough room, honey. Your mother said you invited them. I stared at that last message. Your mother said you invited them. I typed slowly. Me. No one has permission to move into my house. Daniel responded almost immediately. Daniel. My kids are cramped and you're letting rooms sit empty. Nice. Me, my rooms are not a public resource. Mom. We'll talk when you're less defensive. Me. I'm not defensive. I said no. Then Jenna sent a picture of one of the kids sitting on a half-packed cardboard box, holding a stuffed animal. No caption. Just the photo dropped into the chat like evidence in a trial. I didn't respond to that. The kids were innocent. They didn't choose this. But I also knew exactly why that picture was sent. By lunch, the chat had grown teeth. Cousins who barely spoke to me were liking Daniel's messages. Aunt Ruth said, I don't understand why this has to be ugly. Mom wrote, this is breaking my heart. Dad texted me privately, can you just let them get through the week? I wrote back, no. He replied, 1 week won't hurt you. I did not answer because 1 week in my family had a way of becoming until things settle, and until things settle had a way of becoming why are you kicking out children? That evening Daniel called me. I let it ring twice before answering. Liv, he said, like we were both tired of my behavior. What are you doing? I'm eating dinner. You know what I mean. No, I don't think I do. He exhaled loudly. I'm not asking for a mansion. I'm asking for a few months. We're family. You're asking after Mom already told people I invited you. Because she said you understood. I never agreed. Well, we already made arrangements because Mom said you understood. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. What arrangements? I asked. Daniel hesitated, and it was the first time he sounded less confident. The truck, for one. We reserved it. And I changed the mailing address to keep things simple. I set my fork down. You changed your mailing address to my house? It's just forwarding. Don't make it sound creepy. You don't live here. We were trying to avoid delays. Delays for what? The move I said no to. He snapped then. You don't understand what it's like to have people depending on you. I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. Daniel, this entire family has depended on me not making things inconvenient for you since I was 12. That's dramatic. No. Dramatic is reserving a truck for a house you don't own. He said, fine. Be cold. And hung up. I didn't sleep much that night. At 1:17 a.m., I was sitting in bed with my phone glowing in my hand, rereading the group chat. I noticed things I had missed before. Mom had said, once you get settled, everyone will calm down. Not if. Once. Jenna had mentioned that the kids' school paperwork was almost handled. Daniel had said the truck was already reserved. This had not been a request that got out of hand. This had been a plan that ran into a locked door. The next morning, I opened my smart lock app because something in my stomach told me to check it. There were 3 failed attempts from the night before. 9:42 p.m. 9:43 p.m. 9:45 p.m. Old guest code denied. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the screen for a full minute because a failed code does not happen by accident 3 times. The old guest code was one I had given Mom months earlier when she watered my plants while I was away for a weekend. I had changed the main code after I moved in, but I had forgotten that guest access existed in the app. The code had been disabled after that weekend, which was the only reason it didn't work. My hands got cold. It wasn't just pressure anymore. Someone had tried to enter my home. I took screenshots. Then I took screenshots of the screenshots because I was apparently turning into the kind of person who documents her documentation. I changed every code. I removed all guest access. I checked the side door. I checked the garage keypad. I moved the spare key from the little magnetic box under the back steps, then felt stupid for ever keeping it there. At 8:06 a.m. the family chat lit up again. Mom. Olivia, call me. Daniel. We need to stop this nonsense today. Jenna. The kids don't need to be dragged into adult drama. I didn't answer. Then Jenna sent the message that changed everything. Jenna. Carol. Daniel says the old code didn't work. Are you sure Olivia won't call someone if we bring the kids first? I don't want a scene, but you said once we're inside she can't make us leave without looking cruel. The message sat there for maybe 40 seconds. Then it disappeared. Deleted. But 40 seconds is a long time when your thumb is already hovering over the screenshot buttons. I saved it. My phone buzzed a few seconds later. A private text from Mom. Mom, you're misunderstanding. Don't blow this up. I typed back one sentence. Me? I understood perfectly. She called me 7 times in a row. I watched each call ring until it stopped. That was the moment something inside me settled. Not relaxed. Settled. Like a chair leg finally finding the floor. For most of my life I had argued because I thought if I explained myself well enough they would understand. But that message showed me they already understood. They understood that I had not agreed. They understood that I would say no. Their solution was to get inside first and make my refusal look cruel. So I stopped arguing. I started preparing. A friend had once used an attorney named Mr. Lowell for a property issue. So I called his office and explained the situation as calmly as I could. I expected him to sound shocked. He didn't. He just asked practical questions. Do they have keys? No. Have they ever lived there? No. Do they receive mail there? My brother said he changed the mailing address. That needs to be addressed immediately. He told me not to debate ownership at my door. Not to let anyone carry one box inside just for a minute. Not to accept mail for them. Not to let anyone sleep over temporarily, unless I was prepared for everything to get more complicated. By the end of the day, I had an email from him with language so calm it made my family's chaos look even uglier. Per our discussion, no person has permission to enter, occupy, establish residence, receive mail at, or store personal property at your home without your written consent. I printed that email. I printed a short notice stating that Daniel, Jenna, their children, and any other relatives had no permission to enter, occupy, receive mail at, or store property at my house. I printed screenshots of the group chat, Daniel's messages about the truck and mailing address, the smart lock attempts, Jenna's accidental message, and Mom's "don't blow this up" text. I put everything in a folder by the door. I also called the police non-emergency line. I didn't ask them to do anything. I asked what I should do if relatives arrived with a truck and tried to enter without permission. The woman on the phone was patient. She told me to stay calm, avoid physical confrontation, keep doors closed, document everything, and call if anyone refused to leave or tried to force entry. Then I ordered a second camera facing the driveway. I scheduled a locksmith for the side door and garage entry. I walked around my house checking windows like a paranoid person in a bad movie. Except it didn't feel silly because my own family had already tried a code. That night I ate cereal for dinner while sitting on the floor because I had moved my small table away from the front window, so no one could see in easily. I felt angry, yes, but also embarrassed. It is humiliating to realize you have been trained so well that part of you still wants to apologize to the people trying to take from you. The next day, Aunt Ruth texted me privately. Aunt Ruth, your mother says you're making Daniel's kids homeless over pride. I looked at the message for a long time before replying. Me. Did she tell you they tried my old door code? No answer. 5 minutes later. Aunt Ruth, what? I sent nothing else. Not yet. The truck came Saturday morning. I knew it was coming because Daniel had accidentally mentioned the reservation date, and because my driveway camera sent me a notification at 9:11 a.m. when a large white moving truck slowed in front of my house. I was already dressed. Shoes on. Hair tied back. Folder on the small table beside the door. My stomach felt hollow but my hands were steady. The truck backed halfway into my driveway before stopping. Daniel climbed out of the passenger side wearing the confident, annoyed expression of a man who believed this was a formality. Jenna got out of their car behind him, her face tight and tired. The kids were in the back seat with backpacks at their feet. That bothered me more than anything. They looked confused, like they had been told they were arriving at safety and instead had been driven into a fight. Mom and Dad pulled up next. Then Aunt Ruth and my cousin Mara arrived in a separate car. Mara stayed near the curb, arms folded, watching quietly. Aunt Ruth stood beside Mom like a witness who had already chosen a side. My doorbell rang. I let them wait for a few seconds while I checked the camera feed, not because I didn't know who it was, but because I wanted the recording to capture everything. Then I opened the door only wide enough to step onto the porch and closed it behind me. Mom looked relieved for half a second, then annoyed when she realized I had not opened the door for them. Don't embarrass us in front of everyone, Olivia, she said. Open the door. I looked past her at the driver, who was standing by the truck with a clipboard. The driver can stay right there, I said. Nothing is being unloaded. Daniel laughed once, sharp and fake. Come on, Liv. Don't do this in front of the kids. Then you shouldn't have brought them to a house you knew they couldn't enter. Jenna flinched. Mom's mouth tightened. You are punishing children to prove a point. No, I said. You brought children to pressure me into giving up my home. Dad stepped forward, palms out. Everybody's upset. Just let them get through the week. We can sort out details later. That is exactly what I'm not doing. Daniel's face reddened. We already paid for the truck. I didn't reserve it. We emptied half our place. I didn't tell you to. Jenna's voice cracked. Daniel said your mom talked to you. I looked at her. And you asked Carol if I would call someone if you brought the kids first. The porch went still. Mom said quickly, that was taken out of context. I almost smiled. It was one sentence, Mom. The driver shifted by the truck. I walked down 2 porch steps and held out one copy of the notice. I'm the owner of this property, I told him. No items are authorized to be unloaded here. No one has permission to enter or store property here. He took the paper, looked at it, then looked at the family behind me. Daniel said, Man, it's family stuff. We're fine. The driver shook his head. I can't unload without permission from the property owner. Daniel turned on me. Are you serious? Yes. Mom's voice dropped low. You're making us look terrible. No, I said. I'm showing people what you planned. Aunt Ruth crossed her arms. Olivia, your mother told us you invited them and then backed out. I know what she told you. Mom snapped. Ruth, don't engage with this. She's trying to humiliate me. I took out my phone. No, Mom. You humiliated yourself when you gave away a house you don't own. Then I opened the extended family group chat and sent everything. The first screenshot was Daniel saying the truck was reserved. The second was him saying he changed the mailing address. The third was the smart lock app showing 3 failed attempts with the old guest code. The fourth was Jenna's accidental message. The fifth was Mom's private text. You're misunderstanding. Don't blow this up. Then I typed. Since everyone was told I invited them, here's what actually happened. I never agreed. They planned to get inside first and use the children in a public scene to make me look cruel if I refused. Phone started buzzing around me. Aunt Ruth looked down at hers. Her face changed slowly, like someone had turned down a light. Mara looked at me from the curb and gave the smallest nod. Dad pulled out his phone, read and frowned. Carol. Mom didn't look at him. She looked at me like I had betrayed her by telling the truth. How could you do this to your brother? She whispered. I looked at Daniel. He did this to himself. Daniel shoved a hand through his hair. You're acting like we were breaking in. You tried my old door code 3 times. That was Mom. Mom's head snapped toward him. There it was. The first crack. Dad said, Carol, you tried her door code? Mom's eyes filled with tears so fast it almost looked practiced. I was trying to help everyone avoid a scene. You created the scene, I said. Jenna had started crying quietly near the car. One of the kids asked, Are we going inside? And my chest hurt so badly that for 1 second I hated every adult there, including myself, for letting them be anywhere near this. I crouched slightly so I could speak without sounding angry at them. No, sweetheart, I said gently. You're not in trouble. The grown-ups made confusing plans. Jenna turned away, wiping her face. Daniel muttered, Unbelievable. The driver cleared his throat. So, what do you want me to do? Daniel snapped. Give us a minute. No, I said. He can leave, or you can take the truck somewhere else. Nothing stays in my driveway. Mom stepped toward me. Olivia, don't make this uglier than it has to be. I held up the folder. This is me keeping it from getting uglier. Daniel took 1 step up the porch. I didn't move backward. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, Do not come closer to my door. The camera above us caught everything. Daniel looked up, noticed it and stopped. That was the real power shift. Not my folder. Not my voice. The fact that everyone suddenly realized the scene they had planned to control was being recorded without their edits. Aunt Ruth said quietly, Daniel, stop. He turned on her. Are you kidding me? She held up her phone. Your wife's message is right here. Jenna said. I didn't mean to send it to everyone. But you meant what it said, I replied. She didn't deny it. The truck left 30 minutes later without unloading. Daniel argued with the driver about fees near the curb while Mom stood in my driveway crying like she was the victim of a tragedy. Dad kept rubbing his forehead. Aunt Ruth left without saying goodbye to Mom. Mara walked up to me before she got in her car. I'm sorry, she said softly. I nodded because if I spoke I thought I might cry. When everyone finally drove away, my driveway looked ordinary again. That almost made it worse. There should have been some physical sign of what had happened. Tire marks. A crack in the concrete. Something. Instead, there was just my house, my porch, and me standing there with a folder clutched against my ribs. I went inside, locked the door, and sat on the floor with my back against it for a long time. Mom called 16 times that day. I didn't answer. Daniel sent 3 texts. Daniel, hope you're proud. Daniel, the kids are asking why their aunt hates them. Daniel, you made Mom sick. I blocked him for the night, not permanently, just long enough to eat a sandwich without my phone lighting up like a warning sign. Dad texted once. Dad, I didn't know about the code. I believed him. That did not make him innocent. It just meant he had pressured me with incomplete information because it was easier than asking questions. I replied the next morning. Me, you didn't know because you didn't want to know. You told me to be reasonable without asking what happened. He didn't answer for 6 hours. Then, Dad, I should have asked more questions. It was not a full apology, but from my father, it was practically a handwritten confession. I thought the driveway scene would be the end of it. I should have known better. 3 days later, Mom sent a group text inviting everyone to dinner at my parents' house. Mom, we need to talk like adults and heal this family. I stared at the message while standing in my kitchen, eating crackers over the sink. Heal this family meant, put Olivia in a room and pressure her until she apologizes. I almost ignored it. I had already stopped the move. The truck had left. Daniel and Jenna were apparently staying somewhere else temporarily, and paying for storage because they had emptied more than they admitted. The practical crisis had moved away from my doorstep. But the story had not. Mom was still calling relatives and saying I had overreacted. Daniel was still telling people I had humiliated his children. Jenna had gone quiet, which somehow made her look more sympathetic. Aunt Ruth had not publicly apologized, only privately texted. I didn't know. Mara sent me a message that said, I saw what happened. I know you weren't wrong, and that helped more than she probably realized. Still, I knew the family dinner was not about healing. It was about taking back the narrative. So I went. I brought the folder. When I walked into my parents' dining room, the table was already set like a holiday meal, even though it was just a regular weeknight. That was Mom's style. If she wanted to win an argument, she put out cloth napkins. There was a casserole in the middle, rolls in a basket, salad nobody had touched, and the heavy silence of people pretending this was civilized. Daniel sat with his arms crossed. Jenna sat beside him, eyes red but dry. Dad sat at one end of the table, looking like he wished he had suddenly developed a dental emergency. Aunt Ruth was there. So was Mara. 2 other relatives sat near the wall, acting like they had come for dinner instead of a public trial. Mom hugged me when I came in. I let her, but I did not hug her back. She whispered, "Please don't make a scene tonight." I whispered back, "Then don't lie." Her arms dropped. We sat. For 10 minutes, people passed food and made brittle comments about the weather, the kids, the casserole. I took a roll and buttered it because I had learned that eating during an ambush makes people uncomfortable in a way I enjoy more than I should. Finally, Mom put down her fork. "I just want to say," she began, voice trembling, "that I never imagined my own daughter would let things get this far." Daniel leaned back. "Same." I said nothing. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. No tears had fallen yet, but she was optimistic. I was trying to help my son and my grandchildren. Maybe I handled some details imperfectly, but my heart was in the right place. Aunt Ruth looked down at her plate. Daniel said, "Nobody is saying the plan was perfect, but you didn't have to embarrass us in front of a driver and the kids." "You brought the driver and the kids," I said. Jenna spoke quietly. "The kids didn't need to see that." "I agree." I looked at Daniel. "They shouldn't have been brought." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You always twist things." Dad sighed. "Olivia, everyone is upset. Maybe you could acknowledge that the way you handled it was harsh." I set my fork down. "No." Mom's eyes flashed. "No. No," I said again. "I will not apologize for refusing entry to people who plan to occupy my home without permission." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Occupy? Listen to yourself. We're not strangers." That made it worse, Daniel. Strangers wouldn't have known which old code to try. Mom snapped. "I was trying to avoid chaos." I looked at her. "Probably around the time you gave my door code to someone planning to move in without permission." The room went quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator kick on in the kitchen. Mom's face hardened. "You are being cruel." "No, Mom. I am being specific." Daniel pushed his chair back slightly. "My kids needed a roof. Then you should have secured one honestly. We were desperate. You were entitled." Jenna finally looked up. "I'm not proud of how this happened, but we were desperate." Daniel said your mom talked to you. Carol said you agreed in principle. I turned to her. "And when you found out I hadn't?" Jenna swallowed. "Because your message didn't say, 'Carol, did Olivia agree?' It said, 'Are you sure she won't call someone if we bring the kids first?' That means you knew." She looked away. Mom said, "Enough. This family does not need a cross-examination." I reached down, lifted the folder from beside my chair, and placed it on the table. "No," I said. "It needs records." Dad closed his eyes. Mom stared at the folder like it had hissed at her. I opened it and took out the first page. "This is the closing document showing I am the sole owner of my house." Daniel muttered, "No one said you weren't." I looked at him. "You acted like it." I placed the next page down. "This is the email from Mr. Lowell confirming no one has permission to enter, occupy, receive mail at, or store property at my home without my written consent." Mom said, "You got a lawyer against your own family. You tried to move your own family into my house without permission." I placed the screenshots down one by one. Daniel's truck message, the mailing address message, the school paperwork comment, the smart lock attempts, Jenna's accidental message, Mom's private text. Nobody reached for the casserole anymore. Aunt Ruth picked up the page with Jenna's message and read it again, even though everyone had already seen it in the chat. Then she looked at my mother. "Carol, you told us Olivia invited them." Mom's mouth opened. "That's not exactly." I interrupted, not loudly but firmly. "No. It is exactly what you told them." Aunt Ruth's voice sharpened. Why would you say that if it wasn't true? Mom's eyes filled again, but this time the room did not rush to protect her from discomfort. I knew Olivia would come around, Mom said. I almost laughed at the honesty buried in that sentence. You knew I said no, I said. You just thought my no wouldn't survive an audience. Daniel said. We needed help. That's all this was. No, I said. You didn't ask for help. You planned a takeover and called it family. The words landed harder than I expected. Maybe because I didn't shout them. Maybe because the folder was open between us, making it impossible to pretend this was just my attitude. Mara spoke for the first time. She's right. Daniel turned toward her. You don't even know everything. I saw enough in the driveway, Mara said. And I saw the message. You were counting on her looking cruel if she stopped you. Jenna whispered. I didn't want a scene. I looked at her. Then why did you participate in one? She had no answer. Dad cleared his throat. Carol, did you tell Daniel to use the old code? Mom pressed her lips together. Daniel said. Mom said it might still work. Dad stared at her. You told me Olivia was being difficult. You didn't tell me you tried to get them inside first. I was trying to keep this family together, Mom said. I pushed the folder closed. No. You were trying to keep the family hierarchy intact. Daniel needs something, so Olivia gives it. Daniel makes a mistake, so Olivia absorbs it. Daniel plans badly, so Olivia becomes the backup plan. That ended at my front door. Mom shook her head. You sound so cold. I sound finished. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Aunt Ruth looked at me. Her face was red, and she seemed smaller than she had at the start of dinner. Olivia, she said, I owe you an apology. Your mother told me you had offered and then changed your mind. I shouldn't have piled on. It was quiet, awkward, and not dramatic, which made it feel real. Thank you, I said. Dad looked at me. I'm sorry too. I should have asked more questions. I nodded. You should have. He accepted that without defending himself, which was new. Daniel shoved his chair back fully this time. Great. So I'm the villain because I wanted my kids safe. No, I said. You're responsible because you made a plan based on taking something that wasn't offered. He looked around the table, waiting for someone to rescue him. Mom looked too shaken. Dad looked away. Aunt Ruth didn't move. Mara held his stare. For once, Daniel had no orbit. I stood up. Mom said, sit down. We're not done. I am. I put the folder under my arm. Here are my boundaries, and I'm only saying them once. No one gets a door code. No one brings people boxes, furniture, mail, or problems to my house without my written permission. No one shows up to my driveway to pressure me. I will not attend family meetings designed to make me responsible for other people's choices. If anyone tries to enter my home or harass me again, I will use every legal option I have. Daniel rolled his eyes. Legal options. Listen to her. I looked at him. You should. Mom stood too. So that's it? You're choosing a house over your family. No, I said. I'm choosing my home over your control. Then I left before anyone could turn my exit into another debate. The consequences were not dramatic in the way movies make consequences dramatic. No one got arrested. Nobody had a public breakdown in a parking lot. No one suddenly became a better person because I had finally said the perfect sentence. Real life is messier and quieter than that. Daniel and Jenna lost the truck deposit. They had to pay extra because they kept it longer while arguing about where to take everything. Their furniture ended up in storage, which Daniel complained about in the family chat until Aunt Ruth replied, That sounds like something you should have arranged before renting a truck. He did not respond. They found a temporary place that was not mine. I did not ask where. That may sound cold, but I had finally learned that not every detail of Daniel's crisis required my participation. Mom tried to regain sympathy by telling relatives I had lawyered up against family. Unfortunately for her, most of those relatives had already seen the screenshots. A few still thought I should have handled it privately, which was funny because my family had arrived at my house with a moving truck, children, and an audience. Privacy had not been their strategy until exposure stopped working. Aunt Ruth texted me the next day. Aunt Ruth, I'm sorry I believed what your mom said. You didn't deserve that. Mara texted later. Mara, I know nobody says it out loud, but you weren't wrong. They've done this to you for years. I read that message 3 times. Then I sat down on my couch and let myself cry for exactly the reason I had been avoiding. Not because I regretted anything. Because it hurt to realize someone else had seen it all along, and nobody had stopped it. Dad came by a week later. He texted first, which was progress. Dad, can I drop off something? I won't come in unless you say it's okay. I almost said no. Then I said he could leave it on the porch. He brought an envelope with 2 pieces of mail addressed to Daniel that had somehow been forwarded to my house before I stopped it. Across the front, Dad had written, "Return to sender. Does not live here." When I opened the door, he was already stepping back. "I'm not asking to come in," he said quickly. "Okay." He looked older than he had at dinner. "Your mom is still upset." "I'm sure she is. She thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her. I don't trust her." He nodded slowly, like that distinction made sense even if it made him uncomfortable. "I should have stopped it earlier," he said. "Yes. I don't like conflict." "I know." He looked down at the envelope in my hand. That made me part of it. I did not soften the truth for him. "Yes." He swallowed. "I'm sorry." It was still awkward. Still incomplete. But it was the first time he had apologized without adding a reason I should forgive him immediately. "Thank you," I said. He nodded and left. Mom kept calling. For a while I let the calls go to voicemail. Her messages moved through stages. Wounded, angry, sweet, religious, practical, wounded again. One said, "I hope you're happy knowing your brother is paying storage fees." Another said, "A mother should not have to beg her daughter to care." Another said, "We need to talk before this damages the holidays." I deleted most of them without listening twice. Daniel stayed blocked for 2 weeks. When I finally unblocked him, the first message that came through was not an apology. "Daniel, you made everything worse." I wrote back, "Meh, I refuse to make your plan work." Then I blocked him again. Jenna messaged me 3 weeks later. I was making a simple dinner, chicken and rice, nothing special. My phone buzzed on the counter. "Jenna, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I'm sorry for the message and for showing up like that. Daniel is furious with Carol now because she promised something that was never hers. I should have stopped it. I didn't." I read it twice. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel sorry for Daniel either. What I felt was tired in a clean way. Like I had finally put down a heavy bag I had mistaken for part of my own body. I replied, "Me, thank you for acknowledging it. Please do not involve me in your housing situation again." She wrote back, "Jenna, understood." And that was it. That night, I ate dinner at my small table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft click of the thermostat. After I washed my plate, I checked the locks not because I was afraid, but because I liked knowing the door would do exactly what I asked it to do. Locked meant locked. No hidden meanings. No family votes. No just for a week. No one deciding that my quiet was selfish because their chaos was louder. I sat in the living room with one lamp on and looked at the doorway to the guest room Daniel had once called empty. It wasn't empty. It held folded blankets, a bookcase, a box of old photos I was not ready to sort, and space. Space I had paid for. Space I was allowed to have without proving I deserved it more than someone else. For most of my life, I thought guilt was proof that I was doing something wrong. Now I think sometimes guilt is just the sound an old habit makes when it dies. The biggest karma was not that Daniel lost money on the truck, or that Jenna had to explain the storage fees, or that Mom's version of the story fell apart in front of relatives she had tried to recruit. The biggest karma was that they lost control of the story. For once, everyone saw the pattern before my mother could rename it love. They saw the pressure, the planning, the old code the children used as leverage, the lie that I had agreed. They saw it because I stopped trying to be understood and started making the truth impossible to edit. My house did not become a battlefield after that. It became what it was always supposed to be. Mine. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.